want to talk about this, but I know I have to. Sandy was my childhood dog. She was the first pet I ever had. We got her in 2011, and she was 3 years old. And I remember going to Dayton and seeing her, in the cage. We're looking at different dogs. And I saw her. She was this little fluff ball. And she was the cutest thing ever. She came up to the cage and I just knew. I knew she was my dog from that point. I picked her out and I didn't know what would come of it because my parents said, oh, well, we don't know yet. Let's just go see what dogs they have. And I remember on the way home, we were on the highway, and my dad asked me, what do you want to name her? And I said, I want to keep her name Sandy because it reminds me of Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob. I don't know how much time went by, but I think I was in school or something, and my dad went to pick up Sandy, and he said she was so excited to leave. They had to do surgery on her before she left because she had a cherry eye thing, and it would pop out when she would get stressed, and so it was really big. So they had to do surgery on that, as well as get her neutered. I don't know if they did that before we took her or after. She came home, and the poor thing looked just dreadful. She had this very long hair that reached the floor. She hadn't been groomed, I assume. So I think the very first thing we did was we brought her to Petco or PetSmart, one of them, and we got her groomed. We got her trimmed and washed, and she came out looking beautiful, and she was very soft. She was a very good dog. I got sick a lot as a kid, but she was always there, She never left my side, even when I had 100+ degree fevers and vomiting every 10 minutes. She never left. Never once. After my friend Rena died, I leaned heavily on her. I don't remember much afterwards. I think it's trauma blocking or, something your brain does to keep you safe. Even when I totally changed as a person, even when I didn't want to leave my room or anything, she was there. She was the best dog ever. She was the best dog anyone could ever have. She was very skittish. But she never barked unless there was something wrong. She was very quiet. She was trained when we got her too, which was a plus. Her fur was like tan, a tannish off-white, and it was so soft, especially her ears. I would just go like this with her ears all the time because they were so soft. In middle school, I got bullied a lot. A ton. It was to the point where I attempted to take my own life because it was so bad. School sucked because I just moved to Chicopee, and a year after that, Rena died, and I had to cope with her death, along with a new school and new friends, and I was already closed off as it was, and I was already shy as it was, but this just took it to a whole new level. Every day when I would leave for school, I would cry because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave home, but I knew that it would be all better because every single day I would get off the bus at the bus stop and I would walk to my house and there she would be, sitting on the porch, waiting for me, looking out the door. It was the greatest thing to come home to. That and food, but mostly her. She was the best cuddler. She didn't do kisses, unless, it was my dad, or she really missed you. Other than that, she wouldn't do kisses. When we got the cat for my sister, she was afraid of it. She was so afraid of this tiny kitten. I remember that, we used to play this game with her, and where this would be like the cat, and we would show her the butt, and she would sniff. But as soon as we showed her the face, she would back off. And it was really funny. She wasn't fond of the cat at all. But they became best friends. They didn't want to admit it. But there would be times where my mom would catch them, cuddling on the couch. When I got to high school, I didn't. Truth is, I didn't want to be alive anymore. Because I was dealing with depression, I was dealing with self-harm, and, high school, was awful. But every single day she made it better. When I went into the psych ward, and I got back out, she was there with me through all of that. I remember, in my freshman or sophomore year, she got sick. She got really sick. She never got, fevers or anything, but she was really sick, and we didn't know if she would make it. We took her to the vet, and I think she had, some flu or something, but I think she got shots, and within a couple of days she was better. She loved the snow. Oh my God, she loved the snow. When we had to watch her when she would go out, because one, she was white, and every time we let her out in the snow, she would bounce in the snow like a little bunny. 2024 was already rough. I was facing the 10-year anniversary of my best friend's death, and so that was already rough. And right after Sandy's 17th birthday, she started to go downhill fast. She began to have little seizures here and there, and we're like, okay, it's gonna pass. She's gonna be fine. The seizures got more progressive, and even though I knew all things die eventually, I'm like, dogs can't die. They're inevitable, they can't die. I had this mindset of, I knew that dogs died eventually, but it wasn't going to be her. It got very bad. She had seizures multiple times a day, like 6 or 7 times a day. I didn't pay much attention to it because my response with death and grief is to just know that it's going to happen, but I never respond until it actually does happen, which I don't think it's healthy, but, whatever. The week of the 30th, we made appointments for her to be put down. I didn't know how to respond, so I begun this. I tried to write a thing about Sandy and, the grieving process, but I only got a couple pages in, and I couldn't do it. I don't know if I can even read this, but I'm gonna try to because this video is about, remembering her. And I need to do that in order for me to kind of move along with the grieving process. And this was written Monday, August 26, 2024 at 6:08 p.m. Today is Monday, August 26, 2024. This week might just seem like any other week. But what you don't know is that at the end of the week, my dog Sandy is going to be dead. For the last 6 months, Sandy has been knocking on death's door. She turned 17 on July 12th, 2024. And since then, things have been going downhill quite quickly, especially this month. Her mobile movement hasn't been so good, and she hasn't been eating as much. She's almost lost all of her weight, and she's just skin and bones. I can't read the rest of this. I can't. For a long time, I was angry. I was like, how dare she? How dare she go right the month before Rena's 10-year anniversary? All of this is just stalling from talking about the vet. So on August 30th, she was bad. She was so bad. She was basically a sack of potatoes. Honestly, we tried to get an appointment somewhere around that weekend, but what was abrupt was we got an appointment that same day at, I think it was the Holyoke Pet Vet place at 4 o'clock. We loaded everybody up, and I held Sandy on my lap. And honestly, she was already gone at that point. You know, she didn't move. She didn't do anything. Usually when I pet her head, you know, she kind of lifts up. She didn't do that. When we pulled up to the vet, that's when it all hit. That's when I'm like, okay, this is actually happening. That wait in the waiting room was the most torturously slow wait of my entire life. So they called us back. They laid her on that table thing because the vet came in, the assistant, whatever, and she explained to us how it was going to happen and that they were getting the medicine ready. My dad said, oh, you can pet her. You know, she would probably want that. But I was just frozen. I was scared of touching her. I don't know why. I just was. The actual vet came in. She had the little things. And I think they shaved a spot of Sandy's arm. And they I think it was an IV. And she pushed the first thing in, which I think it was to put her to sleep. And she left the room. She's like, okay, let's give it, you know, a few minutes. But honestly, within the first 2 minutes, she did this little seizing up thing and she thought she was going to have another seizure. But afterwards, my mom and I talked about it, and we both knew that wasn't her seizing. That was it. Then the nurse came in, not the nurse, the vet, whatever, and she pushed this other stuff in, and it was to stop the hurt completely. And then in a minute, she was like, yeah, she poked her eye, which I was like, ew, don't do that. And then she said, she's gone. That was the most surreal. And then they wrapped her up in a diaper thing because sometimes when things die, the sphincter relaxes and the bowels come out. So they wrapped her up in like a diaper thing and then a blanket. We put her in the car and started driving to my sister's and my brother-in-law's to bury her. I remember saying, you know, my dog's gone. She's not gonna come back. We got to my brothers and sisters, and my brother-in-law already had a whole dugout. My dad wanted to be the one that carried her because he's like, you know, this is one of the last things I can do as her owner. And I remember we were all standing there for a minute. My dad went to put her in the hole. He yeeted her into the hole. All of me wanted to scream. My entire body just wanted to scream when she was in there. and they put dirt in. It kind of sealed everything, both literally and metaphorically. It sealed everything. The drive home I was just numb at that point. We stopped at a Wendy's, and we got food. However, I didn't eat. And when we got home, I took my pills, and I went to bed. It was like 9 at night, I think. And I went to bed. I didn't bother to change. The day after was the weirdest, because it was like, when you wake up, you kind of forget about it for a few seconds. And then, reality's like, hey, your dog's dead. I think like a week after, we went to the storage unit to get some things or something. And, we were digging around, and I found this bracelet that I haven't seen in years. And it had this charm on it, this paw print charm, and, a heart charm, and the beads were literally the same color as Sandy's fur. And so I put it on, and I called it my Sandy bracelet. And the fact that I haven't seen it in years, and it pops up right after, literally the week after she died, I'm like, this is a sign that she's still here. I wore that thing nonstop. Then out of nowhere, it broke. It literally fell into pieces. And I was heartbroken. I spent a day and a half, hours and hours trying to fix it. Eventually, I just gave up, and I'm like, maybe this was meant to be. Maybe, this is a sign that her soul wants me to start moving on. And then I lost the paw print charm. I kept it, but then I lost it. And for an entire year, I didn't find it. And then, literally 13 days before her 1 year, I found it on the couch I'm sitting in now, between the couch cushion and the armrest. And I found it, and I was like, this isn't a coincidence. I cleaned this couch cushion 1,000 times and never found it. This can't be a coincidence. It's a sign. So ever since then, I put it on this chain, and ever since that day, I haven't took it off. This year is going to be 2 years that she's gone. And, it still feels like yesterday. I think the hardest thing for me is the memories. The especially hardest thing for me is seeing videos of her and feeling her in my arms and playing with her, and knowing that I'll never get to do that again. But for the past few months, my mission is to finish her story. My mission is to honor her in a way I know best, to write about her, to constantly speak about her, even memorize her and carry her with me in necklaces. I don't know how to close this video out, other than to say, I love you, Sandy. You will forever be my first dog. You will forever be my first love. And I will always, always, always save my oranges and pepperoni for you. Until we meet again, my fluffy friend. Bye.